All right, hello everybody. You might notice that we have a new guest on the show, someone that you'll probably see around semi-regularly. My good friend, the legend, the kung fu expert, purple belt, right? Just got purple? Purple
Just
belt.
got purple. Yep.
John Barrymore down in the Big Easy. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Chuck. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great because I managed to get all my pre-orders in yesterday.
Yeah. I was so very lucky. I got in my pre-order line, got in the queue,
Yep.
and I was given a 10-minute wait. So I
I
got in, I ordered all my stuff, and then when you reached out and you're like, I only have 40 minutes left. I'm like,
I
oh
had
no, I hope you get your stuff.
I know I was so concerned I had an hour wait, but before we dive into the old world fun of yesterday, John, tell us a little more about yourself because we sort of did an episode of a podcast for Old World a while ago. Obviously, if you've been to US Open, you know John because he's one of the fellow TOs for Age of Sigmar along with myself, Tomo, and James O'Brien. Um, Tell us more about yourself. Give us a little rundown. Give us an Old World history, an Age of Sigmar history, whatever you want. Let's learn who John is.
Absolutely. I'll give you the brief version of my GW history. I was introduced to the game in college in late 1992. Uh, if the gray in the beard doesn't tell you that, that'll give you a hint on how old this is.
I'm getting a few.
Um,
My wife won't let me live it down. Like I have like 4 or 5 random gray hairs, and like two in the beard, one's in here, one's on my chest hair, and she will not. She's like, there they are. I'm like, oh,
yep,
fine,
it doesn't
okay.
stop. It just gets worse or better, depending on how you look at
I'm
it.
gonna say better. I'm okay for this.
But yeah, so I was introduced to GW games then. That was the very end of third edition Warhammer Fantasy, very beginning of fourth. When I was in college that year is when fourth edition box set with the Empire and the Plastic Goblins was released.
Mhm.
Also, very beginning of second edition, or I guess mid second edition for 40K. So it was about that time. Played a whole lot of Warhammer Fantasy. That was my first game, my first true love.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Played all of the fantasy versions all the way up to 8th edition. Rolled over, started playing Age of Sigmar when that came out. Have played extensively in Age of Sigmar, all editions. Yes, even the time period when there were no points values.
Yes,
Me and my friends could maturely put down our armies in about the size that our fantasy armies were and have a fun game.
there's a part of me that misses that time. I still want to do like an event where we play the Wild West of Warhammer, as it was, or
Oh yeah.
as it was known. It's such a good time.
Nothing had any rend. Everything was like 2 attacks and barely hit. It was weird. But it was fun. It was exciting. It was new.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Of course, I played 40K throughout that entire time as well. Back at the very beginning, I signed up to be in the Outrider program, which was a Games Workshop program where they connected with local kind of fans and lovers of the hobby and got them to be the local demonstration people. So I'd go to local conventions, I'd go to stores, I'd demo the new games. That was kind of like the influencer program back then when they would send me a free copy of the game about 2 weeks ahead of time. I would grab the box, paint everything up. I still remember sitting in my apartment and opening that box and finding the first plastic Bretonians in there and just freaking out. I was so excited.
Thankfully, before social media, before you can make a mistake.
Exactly, before I could release that to anybody. And my roommate had no idea what Warhammer was at all, so it meant nothing for him to see all that stuff sitting around. And I think my kind of crowning achievement of that way back in the day stuff is that was back when to order most of the Games Workshop items, you had to call England.
Yep.
So you had to get up really early in the morning, call over there. It would be midday for them. And they had a deal that was £10 for £10. So
Actually, so I was listening to another podcast, and they mentioned where that came from.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, there was a warehouse over there, and like some shelves fell over for whatever accident, like not on purpose.
Oh, wow.
And they calculated it was cheaper to just sell it by the pound than to resort everything and just start producing new.
That makes a lot of sense because the idea is you paid them £10 sterling, British pound sterling, and they gave you £10. Now all the miniatures were metal back then. They were all that white metal, I think they called it.
Yeah, white metal pewter. Yeah.
And all you could do was pick an army. That's it. You didn't pick individual models. You said, I want orcs and goblins. And you got a random assortment of orcs and goblin miniatures until it added up to £10. So me and a couple of friends got together and called because if you hit a certain amount, shipping was free. And that was really important coming from England.
Yeah, back then? Oh, yeah. Much more expensive.
Oh yeah, and I mean everything was really slow coming over, but hey, that's the way it was.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, me and a couple friends got together. We each picked an army, and when we called and got the guy on the phone, we said, "Hey, can we buy a couple of these each?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure, whatever you want." And so we each decided to buy 2 sets of the 10 pounds for 10 pounds. And when he got to me on the phone, I said, "Can I just order Bretonia twice?" He's like, "Absolutely." So I got 20 pounds of metal Bretonian miniatures, a lot of them like the really old Perry Brothers stuff that was brought over from the historics that were just 100 Years War miniatures.
Right.
All this old, wild, amazing stuff. I have a Bretonian wizard with a big foppish hat and big floppy clothes holding like a ball with an eye print, like an eyeball printed on the front of it. That's his magic sphere. It's weird miniatures.
Pondering that orb way back in the day.
Absolutely. And I mean, they were all so unique and different. And that some of them had metal horses, some of them had the plastic horses. So that was just that was my first kind of introduction into what Bretonia was. I fell in love with it. This is amazing. And that's kind of been my army the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, now circling around to the beginning of the old world, and they're like, Bretonia is up first. I'm like, yes.
Yeah. Good business decision. Bretonian Tomb King's back first, baby.
Uh-huh.
That's good. Well, I mean, we can't be remiss that after that, where you appeared on my radar, so I was hired as the first full-time Age of Sigmar judge. Well, not full-time, because I'm technically part-time. The first Age of Sigmar judge for Games Workshop. That was my only role and title. Did an event in Florida. Second event was in Louisiana. Not gonna go much detail, but John was there. He filled a critical role as he was there as like a local support, which we do from time to time at those events where bringing someone local, they can, they get paid temporarily. They're like kind of like a temporary temp employee, correct? I guess is what it was.
Yeah.
And it was clear John knew how to TO. John was great. John made that what I thought was going to be a shit show fantastic and easy. And afterwards, I think you mentioned to one of our bosses that like you'd be interested in doing this more, and I was just like, yes, please hire him. Oh my god, please hire him, otherwise we're going to die. And there we are.
I was going to say, and I never like to pat myself on the back, but the one moment of pride that I have with this is, so while I was working, you had casually mentioned to me, would you ever be interested in doing another one of these events? Yeah, this is fun. I like this. And I mean, I've TO'd like all our local tournaments here in New Orleans. It's a thing I do. I TO way more tournaments than I play in. So I had fun doing that. It was big. Got to see a lot of people. And then like our first level boss up at the time came over to me and kind of casually asked, would you be interested in doing more of these? And I said, yeah. And then our real boss, Ryan, came up and asked, would you be interested in doing more of these? And I'm like, yes, I'm starting to get the idea here. And then Mike Brandt walks over and
who's
says,
the true boss? He's the top level. He's the final fight.
And he's like, hey, John, would you be interested in doing more of these? And I'm like, yes, please. I would be happy to help however I can. They just bought me a plane ticket to Austin and said, come out there. And when I was out there, Mike was doing his little, all the full timers go out for a drink on like the first night just to kind of get organized. And I said, am I invited to this? He's like, if you're here at this event, you're a full timer. Come along.
Yeah,
so
full.
I was in.
Full part timer, whatever we're called. But yeah, no, there was multiple times like during this, like it's just like it's like, hey, how's John doing? Every time I'm like, he's fantastic. Hire him. So when I
appreciate that.
No, it was all you because you made that so good. There was the best moment. And I think this is when you were officially or unofficially hired. You and I are just standing around. Sigmar's going. The groups are doing good. Nothing's crazy. Nothing's wrong. Maybe like round 4 or 5. Maybe it was 3. I don't even remember. And Mike Brandt walks over and like you had snacks. You brought snacks. Like you were like, boom, you were there. Like there's just chips and stuff. And like our table was clean. Event was running smooth.
I know how to TO an event. You need snacks and drinks.
Oh yeah. But Mike just randomly walked over, and apparently there was some issue with BCP and round pairings because like they did the pod structure and like it was a bit of a headache for whatever reason. It happens from time to time, and this was the second U.S. Open event, so things are going to happen. It's not the norm anymore, thankfully. Mike just walks over and starts eating chips that you brought, and you and I are just standing there, and all of a sudden I'm just like, Mike, can we help you? He's like, no. just needed to be in a calm place. And we're like, cool.
Yep.
And then I think he asked, he's like, who brought the chips? I was like, John did. And he's like, cool. I think that's when you were officially hired without even knowing it. It's just like, John's great.
Everything's under control. Everything's calm. All the players are happy. Just, come on over, hang out, relax, enjoy the gentleman's game.
Yes. But regardless, we are not here for Age of Sigmar. I just want to give you a preface because, John, I definitely want to have you back on the show when you are able to. Obviously, we're not getting rid of Neil. Neil's great, but I think also you were invited up to Teyrathi, which I'm sad you were ill, couldn't attend. It's probably good you didn't come because a couple of us caught ill after the fact.
Yeah, and I would have gotten more of you sick. I had that, whatever that like 2-week flu was that's been going around.
Honestly, that's what went through some of us there. Regardless, it's fine. We're all well. Everyone's good. We'll have you next time. But like, I was hoping you to meet Neil, because Neil is like me, and you're also like me. Like mentality for the Sigmar games and stuff. Mm-hmm. So we'll get this going, and there'll be like little thing going. We'll maybe even bring you into the Strength Hammer fold fully, since the other podcast you started doesn't seem to be happening.
We're all adults and never have free time in our schedule.
I have so much free time. I messaged, it's a random Sunday. I was like, hey John, are you free? Do you want to record? I want to talk about Old World. You're like, yeah. There's free time, okay?
True.
All right. Anyway, but Chew Ice here. Like a bad podcaster. Like a
savage.
Well, the drink's empty, so gotta get rid of the ice. Anyway, so this is just kind of like a love letter type episode because you and I are both excited for Old World, and I figured we just walk through. Excited. Obviously, this is the day after the pre-orders. We both went through that queue. We're gonna go in depth on that. Like, see, like, what did we pre-order? What are we excited for? What do we know? Maybe our local group's pre-ordering. Just talk. Like, I do kind of want to do. I don't want to steal it. Square Base podcast did like top 5 things to be excited about, but like maybe we can list our top 3 things that we're happy and looking forward to with this. But yeah, let me bring up the Old World pre-order here. Oh, and it's gonna look bad because I did it backwards. All right, should look good now.
There we go.
One day I'll get a second monitor or a new PC because this PC's a little old. But so we had the pre-orders yesterday. Boy, that was a good pre-order, John. What was your take on like the amount we're getting at the start of this game?
I think it's great that every army hits the ground running. That we're not doing like for the main games for Sigmar and 40K, we always have like the slow rollout of codexes or battle tomes. Yep. Sometimes we've got like the partial index list that just barely gets you by. And no, I love the fact that we are hitting the ground running with this. Every army, if you want to play it, is ready to go.
Yeah.
We can talk about the detail of some of the stuff that's released, but no matter what it is you want to play, when this thing is released, assuming we'll get the PDFs right away, you're going to be good to go.
This feels like Index Plus.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm hoping we get the PDFs on the 20th, like release at the 20th, because they said in the coming weeks they'll talk more about that. But yeah, like it's a fully fledged launch. I think this is a better launch than Horus Heresy, even as far as like just a sheer amount.
And interesting you say that, because one of the things I was about to bring up is what this launch reminds me of is both Horus Heresy and the Lord of the Rings game. So in Horus Heresy, when they released that, they released 2 different army books, the Liber Hereticus and the Liber Imperialis, I think. But especially all the good legions and all the loyalist legions.
Right. Now, granted, it was a little bit easier then because it was just those 2 sides. But like, yeah, there was things missing, like the the Mechanicus, the Astra Militarum, whatever they were called at that time. I'm mixing those words up a little bit.
Solar Auxilia.
Thank you. But from the get-go, everything is getting it.
Well, that's what Lord of the Rings does too. Is they have the good armies book and the bad armies book. And good and evil, and they do kind of a similar thing where you get the full army list. The only really expansion stuff that comes out, which I'm thinking is what they're doing with this model here, is you may get like a campaign book that has 1 or 2 new troops or like a new way to build your army, and that's as we'll see and probably talk about. That's what these kind of arcane journals are. But yeah, that's what I was saying. Is like I don't think that the base army list for pretty much every army is going to be changed at all throughout the first planned edition or variation or version of this game or whatever. That
Right.
if you decide that you're going to play the Wood Elves and you're going to buy that book with the Wood Elves in it, that's the Wood Elves that you are going to play. You can splash in special characters later. You can have a weird variant army, stuff like that. But the core Wood Elf army itself, there it is. There's its lore of magic. There's all of its magic items. Yep. You are good to go. You're not going to have this kind of have and have-nots when you play of, well, I've already got my battle tome, so I've got cooler things and better rules choices and, more this and more of that. It's like, nope, everybody's got the same.
And it's very easy to start out. So, like, obviously, it's very clear. The Arcane Journals, that's where special characters are coming in. Mm-hmm. The Forces of Fantasy and Ravening Hordes is just the army, but no named special characters, which those are the ones that tend to skew in a more powerful direction. They cost more points. But if you're having, like, the start the game, like, like you're like, hey, let's just play a couple games, no Arcane Journals. That's perfectly fine. It's an easy, quick way to balance it. Now, granted, Arcane Journals are fantastic, and eventually we will all get them, at least as far as the main factions. But I do like, too, like, the Arcane Journals could also be, like you said, supplements for, here's a cool battle that happened. And they've said in the articles, too, that they don't have to necessarily go in a linear time frame. They might go back another 100 years just to do a cool battle and release a character that we might like. So I love this style of release. And I've said it on the
show. And let me throw in real quick. You mentioned about the special characters before we get too far. So I'm definitely of the more old school thinking on this. Back in the day, special characters were special. And in fact, in most all the rule books they had printed, you must have your opponent's permission to use these. It's not designed that Nagash is in every single battle on the battlefield. Karl Franz doesn't show up to every 1,000-point skirmish. It's like, this is a big deal. The day you want to use Karl Franz, you're like, look, you've come into Altdorf. You're going to siege Altdorf. So you got your big chaos army. I'm going to have Karl Franz there because he's going to come out and defend it. Not, hey, let's play 1,000 points on Tuesday night. Great. Here's Karl Franz and the Grand Theogonist. And it's like, really? They all show up to this?
Yeah.
So I like the fact that the special characters are put to the side because to me, if I want to play Bretonnians, I'm going to play a standard Bretonnian army. I've got my own named character who's, my Duke that leads the whole thing and all my own heraldry, that kind of stuff.
That was such a big thing when I started, was the fact that, like, in the 8th edition rulebook, it said, make your general on the board. Make it how you want. That is you. That is your representation. I was like, that really hit home for me. So yeah, I like that that's the case. Like, I don't want my general to be Tyrion. Tyrion is someone I want my general to interact with. But.
And to me, that also makes some of these variant armies. If you want to play a High Elf army, play your High Elf army, have your wizards, have your lords. If you want to bring Teclis or you want to bring Tyrion, you're now bringing Tyrion's force or Teclis's force. To me, thematically, lore-wise, you want to build an army about what would Teclis bring to battle. Not just build your army and jam Teclis in there for a couple hundred points.
Right, because I'll bring all the white lions.
It makes something unique.
Like I went to the Square Base GT end of last year. I took 40 white lions and I put a Lario in it. Because go fuck yourself. I'm going to bring you some hard shit. But regardless.
Got to win at least one game, right?
Hey, I did the perfect. I did 2, 2, and 1. I did the perfect even, and I was still top half, so I was happy. But no, I do like that because that even in history, granted, it's slightly post this time period, maybe shortly after the start of this time frame, there was only like 1 or 2 battles where I had Tyrion and Teclis and Ilariel, and it was Battle of Finnevold Plain, and that was a big fucking battle.
Yeah.
But I do like that too. I like that there's levers on here's the percentages you have to take based upon core, character, rare, or special, and also within there's another lever of design where it's 0 to 1 of this, 0 of this, or if you have this, you can bring 1 of these for this. Like that stuff's fine for me. I like that.
And that's where those variant armies in the Arcane Journals kind of come in, where
they'll break that.
You've got like the Border Prince's army for the Bretonnians. You've also got the Exiles army, where all they really need to do is just change up what you're allowed to buy and maybe splash in like a new equipment option, which they're not jamming in all the boxes. It's like, if you want to do it, this is kind of more back to the old day of, if you want to have spears and shields and your guys either come with sword and board or spear, you're going to have to kind of convert those models. That's fine. That's the kind of game this is. This is not going to be the game where it's all production stuff.
They're fine with you kit bashing stuff that doesn't technically exist. You want Tomb Lords on a chariot? Guess what? You get a chariot kit, and you grab a Tomb Lord kit and you put them together. And I like that because I'm at the same time, like I just did last year. I completed my dwarves, my high elves, my wood elves, and my dark elves, which means I had every character kit bashed or represented, every way to play everything, and it's a lot. But I'm glad that that's back because it adds for so much more creativity.
Well, and if you play any of the, I'll say shorter-lived races, like from the named characters that are in the Bretonnian Arcane Journal, the only one that really existed any other time is the Green Knight. Other than that, we're talking
Humans.
so far away from the time of classic Warhammer Fantasy. None of the characters are alive.
Right, and to be fair too, like looking at this time period, it's like think of more medieval style of Earth. It's not like now where we live 80 to 100 years. This is like 50, 60 years. If you're 40, you're old.
35 or 40, right?
That's true, yeah. So there's multiple generations between now and the end times. But anyway, let's dive in. So like the first thing, like let's run through all the pre-orders from yesterday, and then we'll talk about what we went for. Yeah. So obviously there was the Bretonnian Old World starter set, core set, which comes with the book, templates, dice, that reference sheet, which is going to be invaluable, I feel. Obviously,
absolutely,
and a ton of models. Was it 2 sets of knights, bowmen, some men at arms,
2 sets of infantry,
yep,
yeah,
Peg knights,
and then the character on Pegasus.
Yep. And then after that, we had the Tomb Kings one, which had the dragon, an extra Tomb King, archers. Was it a shoot ton of archers? Lots of infantry, some chariots, some horses. Like pretty interesting. I obviously out of the two of those, I think the Bretonnian set was probably the stronger set. It was also the cheaper set. What's your thoughts on that? Like that's I have Tomb Kings, so I'm taking like this is full biasy out for me. Like I think the Bretonnian box was a better value.
And from what I can tell from like what some of the podcasts from the influencers who got the box early, it's like almost a 1,300 point army.
They're
like,
all 1250. They said minimum
1250. There you go. Yeah, so 1250. I mean that's a really good start for a box. Splash in a couple of special things you want, and you are good to go to 2,000 point game.
Yeah,
each of them came with the little like detachment sheet that allows you to play exactly the models in there as a legally built army. So you can just
build and go.
One, your friend buys the other one, and just build them and go.
Yeah, I like that. I don't ever want to see like here's a full army, just boom and go. It's like no, I want half to a little bit more than half of an army, and then I'm going to customize it myself. Like I want to get some of the knights on foot. I want to get the what's it, Elise, the enchantress on the Pegasus. I want to get her.
Oh yeah.
I'm not sure what type of battle standard I want to get. If I want to get a Pegasus one, or if I want to get a foot one. But it's, like, and then the Tomb Kings, obviously, they have options too. But
yeah, I'm still going to be using my favorite battle standard bearer, the old Réponse de Lyonesse model, the little Joan of Arc carrying the big giant battle standard.
Nice.
I still have her. So, and leading my bowman will be Bertrand the Brigand and the Bowman of Bergerac with Hugo Le Petit and Guy Gros, the original like 4th edition 3 characters that look like Robin Hood, Friar Tuck, and Little John that they made for Bretonnia. I still have those. Yeah.
And then you can for the first time on this show, you can safely assume that pronunciation of those names were correct because John's from Louisiana. So French is a bigger influence than up here in Pittsburgh. We have German.
There you go. So you get all the Empire stuff.
Yeah, I get the Empire stuff. Yeah. And a little bit of dwarf stuff too. There's some Russian too. And then we had the core rulebook. Then the Forces of Fantasy book, Ravaging Hordes book, both of the Arcane Journals. Was it the Questing Knight on Paladin? The first old world model we saw, the Questing Knight Paladin with Great Weapon, which it's weird. That was the first one we saw. I bet that was the one that sold the least.
It's a weird slot. If you're going to take a Paladin, it's like, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, I haven't seen the rules for Bretonnian yet. And by the way, there's a lot of old world content out there on YouTube, so go just search it up. I have not. I've looked at high elves and wood elves in depth right now, and then a little bit of the core rules. So I don't know if the Bretonnian's like, can you make a really choppy foot hero that's worth bringing? Maybe, and he'd be a perfect fit for it.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's for the Knights on Foot, but the Knights on Foot weren't really a unit in Modern. Warhammer Fantasy. I mean,
Yeah.
they were like way back in the day, like second edition, I think, had one.
Yeah, and I'm
But if
curious.
you had any of your foot were all peasants, and then you would get like one foot knight character that you actually would buy a knight, and then you would buy him a virtue, which put him on foot so that he could lead those guys.
Right.
So yeah, it was a weird little thing.
I haven't
But
seen that because like that seems to be the case. Like with the high elves, you can only put your like you get a lord or a hero, and you can say they're Charcian, or you can say they're an anointed of Assyrian or whatever it was. Like you buy that upgrade, which is I think is a cleaner way to do it, and then that dictates where they can go into the units.
oh, okay, that's
So I
nice.
wonder if
Yeah.
it's the same thing. Like maybe you can maybe you can buy him and give him a virtue so he can go into peasants to give them better leadership or like a little bit of combat ability, possibly.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. Then the foot and mounted Bretonnian battle standard bearers, which
In plastic, very nice.
in plastic, which I kind of want to get that. 'Cause I feel like that's more universally useful than the Pegasus one.
Hmm. I mean, I guess the Pegasus, because as far as I know now, from what I've seen on the battle reports, that the battle standard, I don't believe gives you the whole like reroll your morale or anything like that. It gives you like other
It gives you some
bonuses.
leadership rerolls. I think the only one that gives you carte blanche leadership rerolls is the Tomb Kings one because they have
Okay.
unbreakable or unstable.
Yeah.
Like I said, I haven't viewed everything yet. So like, and on this podcast, me and Neil and maybe John, depends on scheduling and all that. We will be doing full in-depth reviews of the of everything. It's going to be slower because we're not full influencers yet, even though I asked for the books. I was not given the books, but I was only 325 subscribers on YouTube. Which, by the way, thank you everybody because the subscriber has grown. So I'm gonna start pushing for 500. So that's been good. But anyway,
Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's get you that 500.
heck yes, it's all because of you, John, not Neo at all.
I'll subscribe 150 more times.
Perfect, thank you. Let's see. Okay, we had the handmaiden of the lady, which I do need to get one of these because I don't. The box doesn't have one, which I did pick up. We'll get into that. Battle standard on Royal Pegasus. Obviously, classic Pegasus Knights, and then the Knights, the Yeoman. It's just everything like that. And then Tomb Kings, obviously, the new Tomb King model, new BSB model, new Tomb Swarm model. Cetra the Imperishable on a normal size base as opposed to that weird T-shaped thing that I have to deal with on my current army.
Yes, that thing was weird and strange and wonderful.
Yes, exactly.
He gets extra horses. Where do you put them? I don't know.
Yeah. The old Lich model, which isn't great, I don't think. The Ubshati Tomb Guard, which also I did catch this briefly. You can put Tomb Guard on chariots now.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh, that's exciting.
it'd be very exciting.
I was say, by the way, part of the charm of those old models is how kind of dorky they look.
Yeah.
I was watching one of the unboxings, and when somebody pulls out the sprue of skeletons, and it's a full size sprue, and there's 4 skeletons on the sprue,
Yeah,
that's all they
it's
fit. Like 4 skeleton bodies, 4 skeleton heads, 4 skeleton hands, 4 skeleton like shields. Like that's on an entire sprue. Now that'd be like 20 guys on that sprue. Back then, 4.
having built a variety of kits lately for my little project. I will say I'm looking forward to just having minimum for a little bit.
So when you get a stack of sprues like this big, it's only one unit of like 20 guys.
Yeah, it's perfectly fine for me. I need that in my life right now. The model I didn't pick up yet because I may go to the reveal event on the 20th at my local Warhammer store. The Necro Sphinx. It's a kit I absolutely love. I have the alternate version where it's the guys riding it, but Necro Sphinx with
That's what I have built. Yeah,
Yeah.
the riders on the back of the
So
big creature, whatever it is.
I'll be picking this bad boy up here at some point. I didn't pre-order it because I figured I'd wait until buy it at the shop because that way maybe I can get one of those coins or something. But and then Necropolis Knights / the other Snake Boys. I have Necropolis Knights because they're the coolest ones for me. But I didn't pick
Is it
it.
the stalkers? I think are the other ones.
Sepulchral Stalkers.
Stalkers.
Yeah. And after that, all bases, which I think we all expected. Which is it's good to see. Obviously, if you don't want to buy them from Games Workshop, there's plenty of other options. Enjoy those. But it's nice that they're selling bases for their models.
Yeah.
And then
because so many of them changed sizes. Like the minimum normal size now, I think is 25 millimeter.
25, yep.
And I know there's options. There's a lot of different options out there for people if you don't want to rebase all of your models, because like I don't really want to rebase all of my stuff. A lot of people are making movement trays that have
Or
20 millimeter square holes in them, but are spaced out for 25 millimeter.
Yep.
So when you put them in, it's the same size as they would be as if they were 25 millimeter bases.
Also seeing a bunch of people make the base extenders, so it takes a 20 to a 25, which is another option that I've looked at. I don't want to rebase on my models. I'm going to make a brand new set of armies for Old World, because
Ooh.
knowing my group, we might still play 8th edition stuff from time to time, so I don't want to pull everything outside of it, because I've also rebased enough in my life. I took all of my fantasy to Sigmar and then went back when it got removed from Sigmar, so I'm not rebasing, I'm just starting fresh.
Understandable. Yeah.
And then in the meantime, until that happens, we all agreed to just play on the old base sizes, because they even said in articles, like, you could, if everyone's on the old base size, it doesn't matter. It just,
yeah, especially for casual play, you play one on whatever you got. The only time it's probably ever going to be called out is if you go to some type of tournament or event that says you need to be on proper base size.
Right.
And for that, buy a couple of movement trays that space you out to there, and you're good to go.
As long as the TO approves that, it's gonna be very
true, man.
special. Yeah, but regardless, we also have the movement trays released, which I'm glad they did. I have a crap ton of them, so I didn't need to buy any of these, but it's nice that they're there.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, the reference cards for Bretonnians and Tomb Kings, the common magic items and lower magic reference cards.
I like those, yeah.
The card sleeves, which my question, and I didn't pick up any of these, I will say that right up front, because I didn't know if I could get these, put them on the cards, and the cards still fit in their boxes.
I'm guessing not. All previous GW cards I've gotten for anything, for any system, the cards tightly fit in the box when you first buy them. So as soon as you pull them out and sleeve them, they don't fit anymore. Usually. You have to go buy like a Gamegenic box. There's plenty of companies for all the other collectible card games that make little plastic boxes, but then you can't put it back in the pretty art little box that fits them.
Correct, but this is also the first time Games Workshop has released cards that they are exactly card shaped. So I don't know.
Well, in theory, all the stuff for Underworlds.
That's true.
And they did release card sleeves for those.
But there's no card boxes.
There are. If you go to the OP events, they have card boxes for each one. And I've tried that before, where if you sleeve them and you try and put them in the card box, it's a really tough fit. Like, you really have to squeeze them to get them in there.
I was waiting till I assumed these weren't going to sell out, and I don't think they did. I was waiting to get the cards first and then see how much space there was, take a test sleeve, and if so, I might buy these, because I think I looked, you would need 3 or 4 to cover everything.
Because it's like 50 sleeves, I think, and I think you get like 140 something cards.
Right, but if you have,
buy like this.
But it's only 36 for like the army specific stuff, so if you buy 3, you're covered, or 4 if you buy them all. But and then there was the dice, which I'm not sure about you. I wanted to buy one set of the Bretonnian dice or the generic dice, and I think they were delayed in America. I didn't see them. Yeah.
I believe they were delayed. I'm lucky enough. I still have my old Warhammer Fantasy dice, the ones that are like red that have the black cracks all over them that come with the scatter and deviation dice. I still have those, so at least I've got scatter and deviation. Other than that, then everything else is just a D6. So just use whatever fancy dice you have.
I bought up over the time when I was getting back into 8th over the past couple of years. I have plenty of artillery dice and scatter dice, so I'm not worried about it. I like new shiny click clack dice. So.
Just because it's part of the joy of this whole like old collectible hobby, I also still have my collection of 8 Winds of Magic acrylic dice that they released that are all in the different colors of the Winds of Magic with the 6 on the symbol, maybe?
Yeah.
No, it's the 1, because they're all dice, so they always made it the 1, is the symbol for each of the 8 Winds of Magic.
I'm jealous.
But then again, in Old World, there's no colleges of magic, so maybe that doesn't apply.
Still, I'm jealous because those are cool, and I was too young at the time. I didn't pick them up, but anyway. Then we had the map of the Old World, which is great, and then there's some 40k stuff, and we move back up to the. Who cares? It's Necrons. If you like Necrons, good for you. You're on the wrong show right now.
By the way, small spoiler. I made up my list of all the stuff that I wanted to buy, so as soon as I got through the queue, I could just go pick all the items.
Oh yeah.
Getting through that storefront. But anyway, I went to go pick up all the items, and I told myself, I'm not going to buy that map. There's no reason to buy that map. That map is just a stupid waste. I bought the map.
Yep.
When I got to the end and I saw it, I'm like, just throw it in the cart and just get it over with. Just put it in the cart and buy it.
Right, and then the full disclosure, John and I work for the company, so we get the discount. So it makes things a little bit interesting. But yeah, I'm like, I was the same. I was just like, I don't really need a map. Cool, I got 2 maps.
Makes it a little more digestible, but it's like, sure, add it to the
Yeah.
cart.
All right, so John, queue experience. You said you had an easy queue time. Tell me about it. Like we obviously we all logged on. We're all ready. So hey, you're in a queue. You'll be in when you're in.
I got on about 10. So for us here in Louisiana, it opens up at noon.
1 o'clock for me. So
okay, yeah, there you go. Yeah, because you're Eastern. So it opens up at noon. So at about 11:50, I popped into the queue, or I popped on the webpage and it put me in the queue, and it just said the queue hasn't started yet, but you're in line, and it gave me my 25-digit unique queue code.
Yep.
And then as soon as it opened up for the queue, right at noon, it popped up to that little waiting bar, and it said estimated time like 17 minutes or something. Like, that's not bad. Almost immediately, it went to 6 minutes and then started counting down from there. But by the time I actually popped in and said, you're up, it was 12:10. So it took me about 10 minutes. I got in. Now, mucking around the store, well, that store still needs some work. I tried to just say, show me everything for the old world. And
no, you have to keep going to shop
wouldn't.
and you have to switch to things. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to keep going in and out and in and out. I started searching for item names and stuff like that. But I mean, other than that, it was smooth. It kept advancing forward. It said 6 minutes, but it's all estimated.
Yeah.
But again, it really only took about 10, and I was in, bought the stuff. I was cleared and out by like 12:13 or 12:14.
Yeah,
I was done, hopped in the car, and went to my friend's house to go play a game.
You and I were messaging back and forth. I was with multiple people. You were the luckiest one for sure, because I was there about a half hour early, and when it popped me and said, "Hey, here's your identification," I got into the queue when it started, and it said over an hour. I was just like, okay, all right. Now here's the thing too. I was like, I am mentally ready to walk into this and everything be out of stock. I just prepared myself. You were telling me to keep faith in the lady, and it did. And I said my prayers to Cain and Asuri and Anisha. And there's other people obviously that were having the same issues, so I was like, okay, is what it is. I'll get in there, I'll get what I can get. My biggest concern was I wanted to get the books and the cards. Like, specifically, honestly, even the books, I could wait on the books. I know they'll reprint them. To me, it was like the cards, because cards are the things that they tend to not reproduce too much of.
Yep, when they're gone, they're gone.
Yep. So I was in there for an hour. I went and had 2 cocktails during that time. And I had headphones on, and I just had music playing, and I was just like, I was in the zone. I was ready in case it like jumped up. But it was it probably took me about 46 minutes total. Like, it was a little bit quicker, but I got in.
I think I had that on like Leviathan release day for 40K.
Yeah.
I hopped in near the beginning, and I mean, it was like an hour and 20 minutes until I actually got to the storefront to buy
right, and I didn't.
It was a long wait.
I wasn't stressed about buying that right away. I just picked up the book when I could. Yeah, this was the longest wait I've been through. And I was worried too, because I know the queue system before. It's the same queue system, but it's a new website. So I was like, we'll see.
But in my understanding of the technology, these queue systems, it became a big thing like when the PlayStation 5 was released and they had all the scalpers.
Yep.
Is when you get into the queue like before noon, it gives you that unique ID and it dumps everybody in. So if there's 10,000 people that all hop in, there's 10,000 unique digits.
Yep.
As soon as it opens up the queue, it randomizes you.
Yep.
Or else it would just encourage you to log in earlier and earlier and earlier. It's like once the queue starts, it randomizes everybody who has signed on, puts you in that order, and then allows X number of people in. And then as people leave, it gets new people. And that's the thing is, even though you technically logged on before I did, randomly it just sorted me
randomly
to the front of the line.
And here's the thing: I will say this before we talk about what we each got. The queue system works.
Mm-hmm.
This has prevented scalpers. I've seen some horror stories. Some people didn't get what they wanted. I was able to get more than what I wanted, if I'm honest with you. I bought extra stuff because it was there, and I was like, yeah, I got the money, and I can do it. It's not going to break me. Let's do it. So it just means like during big releases, I may have to plan my day a little more accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
But that's fine. I'm a fan of the queue system, and it did well by me. So John, give us the rundown. What did you buy yesterday?
So just to give you a brief heads up, and this will explain it. When Warhammer Fantasy ended, the end of 8th edition, I had 2 armies that I played.
Mm-hmm.
Hilariously, they were the only 2 armies that did not make it over to Age of Sigmar. It was Bretonnians and Tomb Kings.
What 2 armies are those?
Yeah. So lucky for me, here come the first two armies, Bretonnians and Tomb Kings.
Boom.
So I ordered the Bretonnian starter box
Yep.
because I could always use more models and gets the rule book. I ordered both Arcane Journals. I ordered both the Ravening Hordes book and the Forces of Fantasy book. I got the army cards for both of those armies. I got the magic item cards. I got the lore of magic cards. And then I got the map. So to me, it's kind of like everything I need to play the two armies that I have, plus the map, because again, at that point, I was like, I'm so far in, let's go.
Yeah.
But like, I didn't feel I really needed any of the other stuff. I don't need any of the other separate miniatures right now. I've got more than enough to play. I'll buy those as I come along to them.
Yep.
I didn't buy the card sleeves. I didn't buy any of the dice because I got so much of that. So yeah, I just kind of hit the key things that allows me to play both of the armies that I have, and I'm good to go.
Yeah, no, that's a good way to do it too. Plus, also models in general, I think they were very open, saying like these will be available on shelf. It might sell out. We will reproduce these. Same with books. So like it was like okay, I wasn't stressed about buying models right away.
And not starting from scratch. I mean, I have a full, well over 2,000 points of fully painted Bretonnians already that I've had, for 20 something years.
Right.
So I didn't need to buy all of those other ones because I can still just play everything I have. And then, as I want to expand it.
You'll buy
so
the
if
new
there's somebody
things,
who's right, if there's somebody who's brand new to the game and they're like, oh, I desperately want to get these models so I can at least play, I'll let them buy the models and get them if they've never had the Bretonnians before. I've got a big stock. So I got the little burst of extra models in the starter box.
Yep.
Just because it's always fun to paint Bretonnian knights. But yeah, as far as the individual characters and stuff, I'll get those when I get around to it.
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. Myself, I went into it. My plan was core rulebook, both of the army books, the Forces of Fantasy, Ravening Hordes, both Arcane Journals, and the cards for common items, Lures of Magic, and Tomb Kings. And then that was like my minimum I wanted to get because I have a Tomb Kings army. So I was like, okay. I go in there after that hour wait, just like sitting there like, what is it? What will be. Walk in there, boom, add book to cart. Add both the Ravening Horde Fantasy to cart. Add both Arcane Journals to cart. Add all three of those decks to cart too. All right, what else is available? Map. Let me take two of those. One for me, one for whatever. You know what? I'm buying the Arcane Journal for the Bretonnians to review it. Let me just buy the cards too. They're there. Boom, added to cart. The best way to review an army is to build and play it. So I bought the Bretonnian starter set.
Gotta love it.
And boom, I was like, cool. There we go. Bought, done. And after I did that is when I realized, I didn't remove the rule book from the cart, so I had an extra rule book.
It'll help you get a friend into the game, right?
Exactly.
Somebody's new, they want to try it out. Like, hey, look, I got a rule book.
I already found somebody he's like, I didn't get a rule book. I'm like, and they're friends. I'm like, guess what? Here you go. You just give me the money, we'll be good to go. So yeah, and then after the fact, I was relieved. I was happy. I'm like, got everything I wanted and then some. Even though I'm gonna be a high elf player entirely for this, like it's nice to get a new army that's gonna sit there and stare at me for a while.
Well, and especially because you've got such a large group that plays around you. If there's somebody who has seen everyone play like the old Hammer that you've been doing, like, man, I really want to get in. Yep. At least you can maybe like, hey, why don't you borrow one of my armies? You have some extra armies, borrow one of my armies, play the game, see which one you like to play. Then you can go out and buy that army. Just gives them more options to try out.
Absolutely. And I know a few people from my gaming club, that same club, have bought as much or not as more as me. So there's plenty of extras in our area.
Yeah.
And I won't lie. Like 3 hours later, I was like, wonder what's sold out. Let's go see what's sold out. Actually, you know what? Nah, I'm not gonna try and go to it on the website. That's too hard. But like core rulebook sold out, Bretonnian box sold out. I think most of the cards sold out.
Yeah.
The books for the army books and Arcane Journals did not sell out, so they printed enough of those, which was nice. Tomb King's box didn't sell out. And I hovered over it for a little bit. I was like, could just add this to cart.
I tried to encourage you to buy it.
Yeah. Actually,
I'll be the little devil on your shoulder. Just pick it up.
What I've decided is because it's going to be weeks away to compensate for this. Because obviously I pay off the credit card bill, all that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm going to the release on the 20th to my Warhammer store.
Mm-hmm.
because you get a free Bretonian model to paint. There'll be other things. I was like, yeah, I'll go out there. My one buddy from the club's gonna come with me. We're gonna go out, make a day of it, go into town, go into the city, do that, go get lunch somewhere, have a good day, come back. And I was just like, talk to him. I'm like, if I walk in there's a Tomb King's box for sale. I'll just buy it. That way I get the book day one.
There you go.
Which means I don't have 3 books. Well, 2, because I found a home for that one. But I haven't written it off yet. So we'll see. I might make one more mistake before this whole thing's over with. Which means after that...
You're not making mistakes. You're making opportunities. Right?
It's true. It's true. But what that will mean is I will have bought everything except for card sleeves and dice.
Yeah.
Which I'm excited for this. So I'm upset about it. It's well within my budget with everything. So I'm good to go.
Well, and again, that's what I'm thinking, like with this game being so forward heavy on the release. I mean, when you buy all of this, when the high elves do come around and they're like, hey, now is going to be the month that we splash out the high elves, they'll be reprinting a lot of models, which you probably have.
I'll buy more.
You'll buy more, but they'll probably have a couple of new sculpts like they do for the Bretonians and the Tomb King. So maybe pick up a couple of random models. But then you get the Arcane Journal, which is that really thin little paperback. It's not that expensive.
Yep.
And the cards. I mean, you've already got the common cards and the lore cards. I mean, you get the little unit cards or whatever they are, and then maybe the dice if you're feeling spicy. But there's not much of an investment when your army actually drops because you've got the full army rules right now or coming in the Forces of Fantasy books. So this is your front investment. You're front loading all your money right here, and then all on the back end is just going to be little dribbles along the way. So I like that model. I like it better than the constant big, huge releases every couple of months. If you are the type of person who plays multiple armies, sometimes it lines up and those armies hit 1 month right after another, and it's just like money's just flying out the door. Here, everything's kind of done right at the beginning, as long as you saved up for it, and then you just have a little bit of an investment whenever your particular faction comes out.
Right. Yeah, and like I said, I'm definitely going to continue to buy all the books as they release. I'll probably buy all the cards as they release too, just to be a completionist for this sake. Even if I don't have the army right away, because I might get it one day. Like I said, it's separated out enough that's not like this was a front investment. But yeah, like I was spending less than half of that whenever the high elves drop. So I might buy the army box. I'll buy their book. I'll buy their cards. Maybe I'll buy their dice, like you said. So it doesn't bother me too much. So, but like I am pleased. I know there's plenty of people out there who didn't quite get what they wanted. What I will say, have patience because clearly, honestly, right now, if you didn't get a couple of the books that you wanted, go check the web store right now because they're available right now. Maybe the queue screwed up or something, but go check it. Maybe it's there.
Also, there was a question posted on the Warhammer community Facebook page about the initial release boxes, the Tomb King, the Bretonian box with a rulebook in it. And somebody asked, are these limited one release items? And at least the person who was responding for Warhammer community said, no, these will be reprinted and kept in production. So these seem to be the starter box for the game.
Right.
But they will be left in production. So if you really wanted a Bretonian box and it sold out, according to them, it should come back into cycle, get reprinted, and you can pick it up again.
Which also means too, like I'll be curious to see when we get the next release armies. Will they get a full box like that? Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll get a box with just models. Maybe they won't get anything. It's just here's the Arcane Journal and the cards. So,
well, and since the main rule book is released separately, they may actually just get. I'm going to reference like 40K's Combat Patrols or Age of Sigmar's Vanguard boxes, where you'll get like a little, maybe 1,000-point army in a box, no need for the set of rules and all that kind of stuff because you can just buy the rules.
As they used to be called, was battle battalion boxes.
Yep, the battalion boxes, absolutely.
Regardless, either way, I'm excited. I was happy to get everything I want. And if you're not, if you didn't get it yet, have patience. They are reprinting stuff, and it will come back in stock eventually.
And the more people hype it up and get excited about it and talk about it at their local shops and view the battle reports online and all that kind of stuff, the more it shows the company there is a crowd out there for it, the more enticed they will be to constantly reprint this stuff, push it to the front of the line for reprints. That shows them it's not going to be a one and done because no one really cares about this game. For as bad as it is for something to sell out, it's kind of a good sign to the company that there's a lot of people that want it and you need to make more. So
right. Also,
that's never really a terrible thing.
Hopefully it's a good sign that we can take those legacy armies and eventually make them not legacy armies. That's what we're all hoping in the future, but we'll leave that topic for another day.
Absolutely.
Regardless. John, I want you to give me Let's go back and forth. Number 3 to number 1. Our top 3 things that we're excited for because of this game right now. Do you need me to kick it off, or do you have something about it?
I can start you off at number 3.
Go ahead. Give us number 3. I'll give you mine then.
Splashes of new miniatures for each army. There's not been a new Bretonnian miniature in a very long time. I'm excited that there are new Bretonnian miniatures for me to look at, engage with, convert, paint, play with, all that kind of fun stuff.
Nice. My number 3 is actually going to be just like the ability to list build in depth again. Because like I'm not talking like you put your armies in, you put your units in, but then like those couple characters, like how do I want to play this? How do I want to play this? That's where I really get the enjoyment out of list building, as opposed to something like a battalion system in Age of Sigmar. That's not crunchy enough for me. So like that crunchy list building is back. That's my number 3.
All right, good. Number 2 for me, honestly, is I like the fact that this still feels, from all the battle reports I've watched and all the articles that I've read, it still feels like Warhammer Fantasy Battle, but yet again, this is kind of the 9th edition. This is an updated version. It's got the feel. It's got some 5th edition in. It's got some 7th edition. It's, a little bit of everything. Every edition of older Warhammer Fantasy had its little quirks, whether it was Hero Hammer or Monster Hammer or Horde Hammer or whatever. This seems to be an attempt to try and nullify a lot of that really bombastic stuff and just make it a good tabletop game. So I'm excited to be back to Warhammer Fantasy with a refreshed, modernized rule set.
Gotcha. My number 2, it kind of plays in that a little bit. It's the return of flavor. I won't lie. If I look at the current rule set for 40K, I don't feel a lot of flavor.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
Sigmar still has a lot of flavor. I think it's kind of like due in part because of the indexing, and you got to wait for codexes to come out to get the flavor. But from the get-go, everybody has everything, so we can all be excited, and we're all gonna have flavor.
Yep.
Like a Dark Elf army, I feel like a Dark Elf army, even if it's a legacy free PDF. Also, by the way, those legacy armies, you're getting your rules for free. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, just the return of flavor has me super excited because that gets me back into that narrative mindset, away from the competitive mindset. Even though I'm more competitive in this game somehow, but I can still play it in a narrative. It's weird, but yeah. the core game being more flavorful makes for a better game system for me personally.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want your number 1, or do you want me to give you my number 1? You can see if you can.
I'll do number 1, and then you can close us out with your number 1.
All right, we'll do that.
Rebuilding the community. I've got so many people that once this was even mentioned, the hype, the people that are coming out of the woodwork, like, oh, I've got my old fantasy armies, I'm going to pull it out of the attic. For those of us that didn't get all of our stuff destroyed in Katrina, and which I was very lucky, somebody had my stuff.
Yeah, all normal people just burned our army, whereas Louisiana's are just like, let's just have a hurricane.
Let a hurricane destroy it. But just the community coming back. Everyone, even if they're diehard 40K only players, they're like, oh, I've got a fantasy army. I'm going to get rules for it. I'm going to get to play again. It's just the excitement and the passion around here from all the players. Like instantly, the community's there. It's not like a brand new game that has to build it from the ground up. The Warhammer Fantasy players are coming out of the woodwork, and I'm so excited to get everybody together, get the passion going, get the hobby going, and just kind of relive the glory days, but with all new stuff. It's fantastic.
I'm not going to say you took what I had because you can never claim it because it's all of us. But yeah, it is. It's the reforming of this community. There was a lot of bad blood whenever it ended and the Sigmar happened. You and I both went through that because we were happy to go to Sigmar and play it. You and I both had to live through the Age of Shitmar and all that stupid stuff.
Yep.
And and truth be told, it's calmed down. I did do like a little PSA call out. I don't know if it was. I doubt it was for me because my 325 subscribers. But I saw a lot of like YouTube out there, like Sigmar focused people who are just like, I don't care, blah blah blah. And it's like, that's honestly, I'd rather have their indifference than their hatred.
Because Sigmar's not going anywhere. They're not canceling Sigmar to bring back this. It's like
still playing.
Sigmar players can play Sigmar.
I'm still playing
Sigmar. Players can play Old World.
I have a narrative
play them both.
Yeah,
exactly.
But like, I saw some like negative hate from Sigmar community, which was kind of frustrating. I'm like, we can do better because we went through this. Don't do it to these people too. Like, you don't have to interact with them per se. Like, you don't have to play this game, but like, I'm excited to see this community come back. I'm excited to see the people like you and me, and a plethora of other people out there who played Sigmar and worked through rebuilding that community from scratch, and the lessons we. All right, so briefly cut off. Sorry, technical issues. We're back to wrap up the last 5 minutes of the show. As opposed to getting through it fully on one unedited video. But I'm excited because there's a lot of people like you and I who went through the building of a new community with Age of Sigmar. Lots of lessons learned, and then there's a lot of people returning who didn't leave and come to Sigmar with us, who have a bunch of things that we didn't get to learn because of the time, the change of games and such. And seeing that all gel together and we create a new brand, fantastic community as a group of folks together. That's what has me most excited as well. Let's build a strong community. Let's play within the same space. Let's not have let's not be toxic positive. Let's not be toxic negative. Let's all just be honest, and let's be truthful, and let's be kind, and let's have a great time building this new legacy world of legends. That's what it's called.
Yeah, well, and I'm hoping that it eases some of the stress in the community on, we had Warhammer Fantasy people, and then Fantasy ended and Sigmar came out, and you had some Sigmar players who, were brand new to Sigmar, but received a lot of hate from the old Fantasy players. I remember standing there playing people in Sigmar at a shop, and somebody would come up and just start trashing the game because that's not Fantasy. I'm like, just go away and take your hate somewhere else.
Yeah,
we're enjoying our game here. And then we definitely at this point have people that have only ever come into the hobby under Sigmar. They know nothing about it. So now they will be side by side. You can pick and choose whatever or both. There's no need for any animosity between the two.
Nope.
That everyone can just enjoy whichever and however many games of this type that they like and just have a blast. It's all about fun, community, hobbying. There's so many more things to paint and write lore about. And you and I definitely know, and I'm sure we'll talk about this on another podcast, but just the writing of the background lore and naming your characters, and for me, coming up with heraldry and all that kind of stuff, it gives me a whole nother thing to dig into beyond all of the other armies that I play. So.
Right, because also I've reached a point too, I found my love in Sigmar, and it's the Daughters of Cain, and I'm deep into it. Just like I found my love in 8th edition Fantasy, which was High Elves. Now I'm returning to that love with fresh view. So I'm excited to do that for a little bit, and then eventually come back to Sigmar with a fresh view and be like, how can I redo my Daughters of Cain? Crazy stuff like that. And the other thing is too, I really like the fact that with the old world returning, because I've heard numerous people are just like, Sigmar doesn't have the best lore, yes it does, and everyone's just like, oh well, it's scrapped at 30 years. It didn't scrap that 30 years, it just moved past it.
Yeah. And
now we get to add more lore to a time period that we didn't know much about, that's just going to eventually feed into Sigmar, hopefully.
That's what I can't wait to dig into in the core rule book, is the fact that this is not Warhammer Fantasy. This is not set during the beginning of the end times like Fantasy always was. This is pretty far in the past. I mean, far enough in the past, for those of people who don't know, the colleges of magic don't exist yet.
Right.
We are that far back in the age of the Empire. This is historic Warhammer Fantasy battles. So there's all new lore to learn, all the new characters. When I was hearing people flip through on what the Bretonnian characters were, I'm so excited to learn about them, who they are, why they're there. So yes, it's Warhammer Fantasy, it's the world that we're used to, but it's a different time period. So there's still new lore to dive into. There's still new novels to read, and maybe some Warhammer Plus shows, maybe some graphic novels, something like that. There's all of this new lore to really dive into that's not just rehashing the same stories with the same characters that we've always seen.
Right, and I'm real curious too, because I'm pretty sure, and I'm going to do a whole video on this solo, where I dive into the High Elf time period, what was going on at this time. But Alariel's mother was the Ever Queen at this time. Alariel wasn't. I think Alariel was around, but she wasn't the Ever Queen yet, because that happened closer towards the. Well,
there's a little baby Alariel tending to her plants, which will
maybe
foreshadow what she's going to do later on in life.
Exactly. I'm just and that's all. Reason I want to do that video is one, for the community, and two, because I want to know what was Tyrion and Teclis doing at this time. I know their history, but I don't have reference to it within the scope of this Imperial timeline.
Yeah.
And it could be quicker than I thought or farther out than I thought. So there's a lot to dive into and a lot more time and story to write. I get to write Teyrathi's story in the old world. I'm excited for that. And she somehow survives through the end times and makes it into the world that was, or the mortal realms from the old world that was.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be a fun time.
Exciting, so exciting.
Yep. But I think we've hit just about that hour mark. I'm not sure. This isn't going to be a normal Strength Hammer podcast episode. Maybe I'll call this just like Fireside Chats with John, since you have a fireplace behind you.
Oh, yes. And a vampire painting.
And a vampire painting. Hard to see in this, but...
oh, yeah, you may not be able to see it very well.
Maybe next time send a picture of it and I'll put it up here.
Absolutely.
Perfect. John, anything you want to say on the way out other than goodbye?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. This is great. I love talking about this stuff. I love talking to you about these kind of things. And to me, the exciting thing is we're like right here at the beginning of this new community. I can't wait to hear people's thoughts and opinions on this, and just everybody sharing their stories, whether you have been a part of this hobby and you're coming back to it, or you're brand new and you want to know what all the hype was about. I'm super excited for the days we have in front of us, because there's so many different angles of the passion. Just painting, reading, writing, playing, building, finding new players, finding old players. I'm just so excited for everything.
Perfect. I can't say it any better, so we'll just leave it at that. Everybody, we will see you later on. Until next time, stay Stormcast strong and happy hobbying.
For the lady.